thanking you all for the opportunity, but also where Ravi, the earlier speaker, left, talking about the bottom of the pyramid. Now, let me start with an old anecdote. Back in 2007, C.K. Prahlad, who was actually the famous author of this book called The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, he was the inspiration behind India at 75 vision. This vision document was launched spectacularly during the incredible India at 60 celebrations in New York back in September 2007. This vision, adopted by the government of India and the CII, was to be achieved by 2022, this year. And amongst the most compelling elements of this vision was that India, a young nation back in 2007, was to put to work over the next 15 years a 500 million strong youth workforce, which was just coming of age. We're in 2022, and we are all bound to ask, have we? Did we? Last year, when Ministry of Skills Development wrote its annual report, it said they trained 1.5 million candidates under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Only 250,000 of them were able to get jobs. It trained another 400,000 under its JSS, Yojana. And all this against an annual target of over 30 million youth that need to be put to work. The youth unemployment rate at 28%, and the overall unemployment rate at 8% is highest amongst the emerging markets. And organized sector employment, over this last 15-year period between 2007 and 2022 has just moved up from about 27 odd million to 29 million. So this whole theory of a demographic dividend for India lies in tatters. And the biggest brunt is borne by rural India. Now you'd ask, why am I telling this story and what's the background? Now, I have an idea of what we should do. I have an idea because I've invested 7 years and lost 25 crores personally in trying to solve this problem. So usually people who stand up in front of you are people who are successful, have built large companies, say they have built unicorns. I'm standing here as a failed entrepreneur who retired early from corporate life. I had McKinsey Knowledge Center. I took WNS public back on New York Stock Exchange in 2006. And in an idealist, frame of mind in 2007, I said, look, we got to be able to put all this youth coming out from rural India to work. Otherwise, India is going to be headed for a disaster. 7 years later, we had impact. We put 60,000 people to work, mostly rural students and semi-urban students. But the misadventures left an economic hole. I sometimes tell myself that's the most expensive education anyone can get, and I'm happy to share it. So here's what I learned over the 7 years of misadventures in skills development of what India should do and how can we bridge this divide between rural India and employment. I think India should do 3 things. 1, we really do need to understand and address market failures. 2nd, we have to truly identify sharply our growth sectors, and I'm going to build on all of this. And 3rd, we have to build what is called human talent supply chains. So 3 solutions that I've learned over these 7 years: we address market failures, identify growth sectors and skills, and build human talent supply chains. So let me spend a few minutes on each, talking about the details and telling you from my own experiences of why we are where we are. We need to address market failure again. 3 key reasons. 1, we have to make merit matter. It no longer matters in the country. Percentage or a degree, being a graduate or postgraduate, is no longer a symbol of merit and no longer guarantees you a job. This is the reason why law graduates are applying to be drivers, or engineers are trying to be waiters at fast food restaurants. And if you ask why, let's give you an example. In my days in skills development, I went to 18 different states where we were working. And especially working with private universities, I found a private university that tries to create an engineer over 4 years, charges 4 lakhs in fees, actually spends upfront about 40,000 rupees in sales and marketing per candidate to acquire that candidate. Now, when a private university has spent, as any entrepreneur would, 40,000 rupees to acquire a candidate, that candidate cannot drop out. That candidate cannot fail, because if he or she fails and they drop out, there's no more fees. They need to milk each and every candidate. So every candidate, whether or not they come to the university, whether they study or not, whether they learn or not, they all graduate, they all become engineers, because that's the only way that private university is going to milk its 4 lakh rupees from that candidate. Therefore, as a country, we shouldn't be surprised that we have such low employability rates. And therefore, the merit does not matter. And therefore, we have a market failure. Let me give you another example, around making merit matter. I'm speaking to you from Gurgaon. And Haryana government just passed a law that all private corporations in Haryana need to reserve 75% of the jobs of up to 30,000 rupees, plus, for local residents, for Haryana residents, Haryana domicile. Think about it. Reservations are an instrument of social justice to be used for civilizational biases, things that have happened over a long period of time, and when certain classes of people have struggled and have, deliberately been kept behind. But it's not a job allocation system. A reservation is not a job allocation system for, settling domicile issues. And if we follow such policies, we will never make merit matter, and we will never address the problem. Another reason we have a market failure is we've had too much concentrated growth, especially post-liberalization of India. Few cities have benefited. Clearly, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, big cities, they have benefited a lot. But that's not where Indians who need the jobs are. We cannot keep bringing kids to the jobs in big cities. We have to take the jobs to them. And how will this happen? We have to create climate and policies for regionally diversified investment and growth. We have done that well in the past with software technology parks, export-oriented units. Why can't we do the same for skills development centers? Why can't every state be thinking about this? And just like IT companies got tax ops and export-oriented units got tax ops, why can't skills development companies get similar tax ops and have dedicated skills development centers so that people go to the water hole? For ages, humanity developed, and if you see where the big cities developed, it was around water. That's where humanity wanted to go. If you see where animals are in forests, they are near a water hole. Companies have to come to skills development centers, and that's why often university towns, etc., attract people. We've done this in the past. We have to do that again. Third reason why we have a market failure is we have to renew pride in vocational roles, what we call gray-collared, blue-collared, or jobs. As I went around the country over these 7 years, and spoke with fresh graduates, no one wanted to get a field job. Everyone wanted to get what they called office job. They want to be sitting, wearing a tie inside an office. And the reason is that this is not just about hand versus mind. It comes down to salary differential. The reason we have such a huge salary differential is what is perceived as an office job or a field job you do with your hand as electrician, plumber, carpenter, anything, lathe machinist, is that we have traditionally, to keep costs low, hired unskilled workers, unskilled, uncertified workers, in blue-collar jobs. And obviously, therefore, the cost is low and the differential is high. What can India do? We have to absolutely ban use of uncertified, unskilled worker, whether it's construction industry, transport industry, agriculture industry, because only then will the salary levels go up if people are hiring certified, and only then the differential will go down. Advertising alone will not help, and I know Indian government has done this in the past, but that alone cannot help. We have to restore the basic equilibrium, because developed countries, whether you look at Northern Europe, and everywhere from Scandinavia to Germany, or even East Asia, South Korea or US, 65% or more of the workforce is vocationally trained. Second, so we just discussed address market failures. Second thing India must do is identify growth sectors in a real, logical way. And this is not aspirational sectors. When you go to universities and talk to fresh graduates or people coming out, everyone wants to be in banking, obviously, aspirational, because in the last 20, 30 years, they saw finance professionals doing very well. And people want to have homes and cars and good lives and holidays and families. So how do we look at, there should be precision targeting and no carpet bombing. We have to select in sectors, investment ideas, knowing very well the kind of jobs potential they will have. For example, the future is not about banking, etc. Every big bank I know has actually branch reduction targets. Branch reduction targets, not just India, because everything is going digital. But industries that are growing, cybersecurity, healthcare, hospitality, they are going to be future engines of growth. We have to understand which sectors truly deliver inclusive growth and impact. So anything that is an impact sector delivers 10 to 14 times more job for every $1 million invested. And this is food, agri, ag tech, education, skills, ed tech, healthcare, pharma, health tech, most of these sectors which are at the confluence of technology and social or environmental impact, clean tech, ed tech, health tech, fintech, they are going to deliver the growth. Just 5 sectors I analyzed have the capability of creating 50 million jobs annually. 50 million jobs in just 5 sectors. And let me give you the top 5, 6 ideas we found. Dairy farming still has a huge potential, can annually over the next 5 years create 20 million jobs. Other than dairy farming, digital consumer saving products, K-12 education now, supplemental extracurricular education, student housing solutions, neo-banking, digital lending. All these are specific investment themes which are creating jobs. So what India needs to do is stop looking at a sector as a whole and go down to investment theme level. But most importantly, I think we have to change a culture, which you're seeing all around you. We have to move away from job seekers to job creators. And the solution is not just small, medium enterprise, it's micro entrepreneurship. For rural India, it has to be micro entrepreneurship. At Aspire Circle, one of my foundations, we created a national impact mission, worked with some of India's leading nonprofits like Seva, which work with women. And with just a 2 lakh rupee investment, a poor woman in a village can not just create livelihood for herself, but for 2 or 3 other people in a micro enterprise. Instead of trying to figure out how to lose money, lending to the mega rich of India, we got to figure out how to channel money to micro entrepreneurship. Until this COVID, microfinance, where we lent money, to unsecured loans of up to 50,000 rupees to India's poor, had just a 2% write-off. And our commercial banks, which used to lend to India's rich, our millionaires and billionaires, had 7 or 8% write-offs. Who returns money faster? So if rural India has shown a track record without showing the traditional collateral of returning money in microfinance industry and helping it grow so large that 8 of them got small finance bank licenses, there is something out there that we need to tap into. The last and final idea, from my 7 years of failures as a social entrepreneur in skills development, is the solution to bridging this rural divide with employment is building human talent supply chains. Yes, you're hearing this right. Human talent supply chains. Think about manufacturing industry. If you're a car maker, you try and think of your supply chain just because your material cost is 40 to 50%, not just at tier 1, but tier 2 and tier 3. So you may be a General Motor buying an engine from Delphi, which might be buying a wire harness, from Sumi Motherson, which might be buying polyester pellets from Reliance. You are going down and trying to think about cost management and vendor management, not just at tier 1, but tier 3 levels. in service companies, banks. Service industry is the biggest now contributor to GDP. The biggest cost is human talent, 40 to 50%, just like in manufacturing, it's materials. But in manufacturing, if we've been able to go down and build supply chain, why have we not thought of building human talent supply chains, from corporations, all the way down to tier 3, let's say in K-12 schools? Unless there is direct connect, children in schools will continue to learn what is not applicable in business life. And so we've got to build similar supply chains that school children are going to colleges, are on particular track to certain employment, are going to training institutes, etc., and then joining these corporations. But at every stage, employers are helping with curriculum, in board of studies. In fact, government should make it mandatory that employers must be on all school, college, or university boards. Let me give you an interesting example. One of the largest IT companies in India, which I used to work with, a large US company, now has 10,000 people in tech support. When they first came to India about 15 years back, they were hiring engineers, and so that they can do global tech support and trying to teach them English. They failed miserably. In 5 years, they changed the strategy. They said they started hiring English language graduates and started teaching them engineering, which was easier, and make them still tech support people. There are certain basic linguistic and skills which you can only get in early school, college education. If you miss that, you miss the ship. Second, create talent just in time, just like in materials. Think of it this way. Business doesn't grow once a year at every April end when the graduates come out of the university. No, business grows throughout the year. Even in agriculture, we were able to go in green revolution from 1 or 2 crops to 3 crops and now even 4 crops. But no, our schools and universities are designed that once in a year, we're going to give out a crop to be harvested of talent. And so every organization has to build accordingly. And when there's a downturn, what happens? Big employers, including they keep deferring the onboarding of candidates, 3 months, 6 months. We have to move away. We have to move to semesters and quarters, and we have to be more dynamic and be just in time. The last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to leave you alone. We have to address this thing, price, skills, transparency. Even basic minimum income in India differs by states. And in many cases, the lack of transparency is helping keep costs low and young people, youth, exploited. Now we want to be a low-cost base. We want world to come here. We want them to outsource IT services and BPO and KPO, but it comes at a cost. We are still going to be given a population lower cost compared to many developed countries. But to build a fair market, you need information systems and you need price, salary, transparency. It still happens through surveys. It still happens, through state notifications, but we need to have more system. So I'm going to leave you with this. Over 7 years of my experience, especially working in rural India, small towns, I found those people have same aspirations as we do in big cities. And we really have to put them in center when we think of solutions. These have to be systemic solutions. 15 years of skills development missions have brought us where we find ourselves producing 1 million or 2 million trained graduates when the need is 30 million. We have 28% youth unemployment rate. Really feel if we can address these market failures, make merit matter, make sure that we have dispersed and not concentrated growth, make sure we renew pride in vocational, we identify growth sectors, especially identify sectors, catalyze micro entrepreneurship, and we build human talents supply chains with just-in-time talent. We can solve in a systemic approach and finally be able to get the demographic dividend that we all seek. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And I hope, my misadventures can teach us all how not to make the same mistakes in future that I've done in the past. Thank you very much.